Today we're going to learn about the golden age of the arts. Basically, the artists of the Renaissance. The Renaissance art reflected humanist concerns. Now remember, these would be the concerns of the people. Renaissance artists portrayed religious figures such as Mary, Jesus, and the saints, which pleased the church. However, they often set these figures against Greek or Roman backgrounds, which did not make the church very happy. Painters also produced portraits of well-known figures of the day, reflecting the humanist interests in individual achievement. That's basically the same thing as if you were to put a poster of your favorite celebrity up on your wall. Okay? It's something that interests you, but would not necessarily make the Catholic Church very happy. Renaissance artists studied ancient Greek and Roman works and revived many of these classical forms. Roman art had been very realistic, and Renaissance painters developed new techniques for representing both humans and landscapes in a realistic way. Renaissance artists learned the rules of perspective. By making distant objects smaller than those close to the viewer, artists could paint scenes that appeared three-dimensional. Now, hopefully, if you're taking art this year, you will learn how to draw three-dimensional pictures. They also used shading to make objects look round and real. Renaissance artists studied human anatomy and drew from live models. This made it possible for them to portray the human body more accurately than medieval artists had previously done. Let's look at a few of these examples. Look at the realism in this picture. It's almost as though this is a photograph and not a painting. Notice the perspective as well. Do you see the smaller ship far away compared to the ships closer up? This is a picture that gives a very good example of perspective. They draw these lines on their paper and then kind of erase them in a way. Or I guess you could call them imaginary lines. They help the artists when they are drawing a perspective painting. Here is another example of perspective. The shading allows for a light to be indicated in this picture. It also creates the illusion that there is a sphere instead of just a flat painted surface. Three of the great painters that we're going to be discussing are Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Now, you may notice that on 7th grade hall, we go by team names such as Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael. Well, we're Team Donatello. I encourage you to look into Donatello if you have the opportunity. But let's start with Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo was born in 1452 in Florence, Italy. He's most known for painting the Mona Lisa. You know, that painting that always stares at you no matter where you stand. He made sketches of nature and of models in his studio. He even did something kind of disgusting. He dissected corpses to learn how bones and muscles work. His interests extended to botany, anatomy, optics, music, architecture, and even engineering. He made sketches for flying machines and undersea boats, and he even made sketches of a tank or two. He was a man before his time. Michelangelo. You may remember people calling him Michelangelo, but I believe the correct pronunciation is Michelangelo. He was a genius. He was a sculptor, an engineer, a painter, an architect, and a poet. He shaped stone into masterpieces like the Pieta and David. Michelangelo's statue of the biblical shepherd found in the Bible. This is a self-portrait of Michelangelo, and this is an image of the statue of David. Now let's look to Raphael. He studied the works of the great masters who lived before him, the works of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. His paintings were a blend of Christian and classical styles. One of his most well-known works is a great work of art called The School of Athens. It pictures an imagery of gatherings of great thinkers and scientists, including Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and even himself. He decided to include a portrait of himself within this great work. Here is a picture of the School of Athens. Can you find Raphael? Artists of the Northern Renaissance. The Northern Renaissance began in the 1400s in the prosperous cities of Flanders. It is a region that included parts of what is today northern France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. And just in case you are still uncertain of where that is, I have a picture coming up. Spain, France, Germany, and England enjoyed their great cultural rebirth 100 years after the Renaissance began, in the 1500s. Here is a picture of Europe of the time. Can you find Flanders? Let's look to find France and England first. Flanders is situated between the two. A German Leonardo, known as Albert Dürer, traveled to Italy in 1494 to study the techniques of the Italian masters. Now, Dürer returned home and he took what he learned in Italy and employed these methods in paintings, engravings, and prints that portrayed the religious upheaval of his age. Through these works, as well as through essays, Dürer helped spread the Italian Renaissance ideas in his homeland. Thanks to Dürer, the Renaissance spread throughout Europe. Flemish painters. Among the many talented artists of Flanders in the 1400s were Jan and Herbert van Eyck. Their portrayals of townspeople as well as the religious scenes abound in rich details that add to the realism of their art. The Van Eycks also developed oil paint. Northern artists used this new medium to produce strong colors and, this should say on a hard surface. Thanks to the oil paints by Van Eyck, the colors were very vibrant. Northern humanists. These are humanists found in Europe, not just Italy. Like Italian humanists, Northern European humanist scholars stressed education and a revival of classical learning. At the same time, however, they emphasized religious themes. After all, they wanted to stay on the Catholic Church's good side. They believed that the revival of ancient learning should be used to bring about religious and moral reform. The Dutch humanists, and I know I'm going to mispronounce his name, Didericus Erasmus, used his knowledge of classical languages to produce a new Greek edition of the New Testament and a much-loved Latin translation of the same text. We call that the Vulgate. Emmaus also called for a translation of the Bible into the everyday language of the people. We call this everyday language of the people the vernacular. For most of you, your vernacular is the English language. Back then, not everyone had the ability to read the Bible because it was only available in Latin. But Emmaus believed that the Bible should be translated for everyone. As he explained, I disagree very much with those who are unwilling that the Holy Scripture, translated into the vernacular, be read by the uneducated, as if the strength of Christian religion consisted in the ignorance of it. Basically, he believed that everyone should be allowed to read the Bible. That way they would not be misled by the people in power. Irenaeus often used his pen to call for reforms in the church. He challenged the worldliness of the church practices and urged a return to early Christian traditions. In his best-known work, The Praise of Folly, he uses humor to expose the ignorant and immoral behavior of many people of his day, including the clergy. For those of you who are unaware, clergy were people who held positions within the church. A Christian thinker, he taught that the individual's chief duties were to be open-minded and of goodwill towards others. Another Northern Renaissance influencer is a man by the name of Sir Thomas More. We'll learn a great deal more about Sir Thomas More tomorrow, but I thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and introduce him to you today. Sir Thomas More used his pen to press for social and economic reform. Basically, he created lots of writings to spread his ideas. In his book called Utopia, More describes an ideal society where men and women live in peace and harmony. Private property does not exist in More's utopia. No one is idle, all are educated, and justice is used to end crime rather than to eliminate the criminal. Thomas More, an English judge, was later put to death when he refused to support the King Henry VIII in a controversy with the Pope. But we'll get more into that tomorrow. Think about this literature of the Northern humanists. How did it impact society? Is it still influencing society today?